What about self-control? What about releasing bad habits? How do we release bad habits? Well, it's all about balance, my friends. Remember, there really is no bad habits, no good or bad. There are merely things we do to cope with being out of balance, right? Well, first, we must look at what causes imbalance, right? Well, we must remember we are born into a sea of stimulation, aggravation, and information, which perpetuates the cycles of thought. And when we start getting caught in the cycles of thought, we start identifying with the actor, with the ego, or the somebodyness. This is the beginning of many of our imbalance issues, because when we think we're somebody, when we think we know, we think we're in control. Control is an illusion. Why is control an illusion? Because it only exists when we're stuck in the cycles of thought. Control only exists in the thinking mind. What happens when we stop thinking and become the observer? There is no control. We realize we are merely the observer. We are merely nature running off. So why do we get things like stress, which throws us out of balance? Why do we have things like shame and guilt and think we're sinners? All these things assume control, but we know control is an illusion because it only exists in the thinking mind. And when we stop thinking, there is no control, right? So this is the cause of many of our balance issues, right? And our lack of self-control. Another cause of many of our balance issues is our chemistry, right? Because if our chemistry is, if we're in an acidic type of chemistry, if our parathyroid's down, this can cause depression. If our adrenals are down, this could cause anxiety, and these can cause balance issues. So this is why presence and purification can resolve all of our issues. We need to calm the mind. We need to facilitate a state of peace. We need to reconstitute and empty the mind, and we must purify the body. If we focus on all these pillars, we will naturally start to regain balance, right? By removing the aggravators, the stimulators, and the information. We remove these things, we facilitate a state of peace, we'll naturally start to regain balance. And as we do this, as we fix our chemistry and calm the mind, right? We release our identification with the actor, the somebody, the ego, and we start to see nature running off. This is going to allow us to balance. And this is going to allow us to naturally release these bad habits or things we're doing to cope with being out of balance. And this will naturally bring self-control. For instance, I was heavily into emotional binge eating. I had problems smoking too much weed, things like this. I had no self-control. However, through presence and purification and focusing on this path and focusing on the path of facilitating a state of peace and removing the things that were causing more aggravation, which caused me to go toward these things more, by doing all these things, I naturally started to rebalance myself, to balance my emotions, to balance my chemistry, and these bad habits naturally dissolved, like drinking alcohol. When I focused on purification specifically, my body I no longer wanted to drink alcohol. It's been over 4 years for me now. Eventually you reach a point, I just don't want it. Dehydrating, I don't feel good. It doesn't vibe with me anymore. It fell away naturally, like eating junk food. I can't eat it. You purify the body enough, you get on the raw fruits, berries, and melons, and the leafy greens, and the raw foods. You purify the body enough and change your chemistry, a lot of things will fall off naturally. Presence and purification, you surrender to God, you calm the mind, a lot of things will start to balance themselves. You will gain self-control. This is from my own experience. I have experienced this, right? Getting rid of the junk food. I can't even eat junk food anymore. You go long enough, I was smoking weed for a long time, up until pretty semi-recently. But purifying my body enough and fixing my chemistry enough, I can't even do that anymore because it now has a negative effect for me on my body. It is much more negative, and there really is not much positive for it anymore. These things fall off naturally as we continue on the one true path, which is what? 2 of the greatest devotions to God, presence and purification. Why are these 2 of the greatest devotions to God? Presence is surrender, is giving it all up to God, saying, I trust you 1,000%. I am God's eternal love pouring forth. This is allowing God, the divine, to work through us, right? And when we allow the divine to work through this vessel that we're purifying, which is also the divine, which is also God, which is why it is also one of the highest devotions to God, when we do this and allow the divine to work through us, become our higher selves, everything's groovy, baby. Everything self-corrects. Remember, the path is self-correcting. As long as we stay on the path, we don't need to judge ourselves. We merely need to accept where we're at. We don't need to try to manifest anything or try to do anything. That's all a trap. That's all a trap in the illusion, right? Trying to do anything. God only requires one thing from us, our attention. And how do we give God our attention? Surrender. But how do we surrender in this sea of stimulation, aggravation, and information? We have to remove the aggravators and facilitate a state of peace. All these things I talk about in all my videos, they all tie together. Facilitate a state of peace. We have what's another major aggravator we have to remove? Our physical aggravators are chemistry, which causes a lot of imbalance. If we're eating poor diets, this is going to cause imbalance, which is going to aggravate the body, not only the body, but the mind. It's going to be harder to stay present, which is what? Giving our attention to God. All these things work together, right? So how do we release bad habits? Let's review. We have to regain balance, because there's no such thing as good or bad. It is merely things we're doing to cope with being out of balance. And remember, we need not judge ourselves. Try to just observe. If you're eating junk food, okay, I'm eating junk food. All right. All right. Well, now my body feels garbage. When I eat I've eaten a few cooked meals in the last 280 days. I don't know, whatever it is, right? It's been, and the few times when you purify enough, those meals really mess me up. And I just observe it. I don't judge myself. Why did I end up eating this cooked meal when I've been eating mainly raw fruits and some vegetables this whole time? I was out of balance. Let's take a look at, let's keep stepping back, be the observer. What could cause me out of balance? Well, we have to recognize and remove the aggravators. Oh, maybe I'm using my phone too much. Right? I'm getting caught in the cycles of thought. The cycles of thought will pull you down every time, right? If we take in too much aggravation, stimulation, information, it's going to get the cycles of thought going, which does what? Which gets our attachment and our identification to our somebodyness, our ego going, which makes us think we're somebody doing something, which makes us think we're in control. Oh, here comes all your imbalances. You think you're in control? Stress, anxiety, oh, guilt, shame. Oh, I should have done this. Why didn't I do this? There is no control. Control is an illusion. All these mental problems and traps are just traps of the illusion. And they all assume control, which there is no control. God is in control. Control is an illusion. Why people have, this is a hard perspective to tolerate. Why? Because the ego resists its own destruction. We're all caught in the ego. So when the ego hears there is no control, which is a direct result of the egoic mind, it kind of spasms. Oh, wait a minute. No, I have control. No, you don't. Control is an illusion. It's an attachment to the thinking mind, the cycles of thought, which gets exacerbated by the sea of stimulation, information, aggravation, right? So we have to facilitate a peaceful state to calm the mind. We must clean the body. We must empty the mind. If we want to receive deeper understanding from the divine about these things that will help us on our path of presence and purification and help deepen everything and keep the positive cycle going, we have to reconstitute the mind, empty the mind, stop taking in information. Facilitate a state of peace is so important, because this is going to help take our attention away from all the aggravators, the things that are sucking our attention, and allow us to better give our attention to our cosmic beloved, which will set us free. So you can do it, my friends. If you find yourself stuck in these habits and you're like, how do I release this habit? How do I stop drinking or smoking weed or eating junk food or change my diet, whatever it may be, thinking poorly of myself, shame, regret, all these things, the illusion of control, presence and purification. Just every day, focus on giving it all up. Say, I surrender to you, my cosmic beloved. I am God's eternal love pouring forth. Namaste.